And this is what I always say, right? When you are big, you are big. And it's those that are big that'll be pushing, that'll be trying to say, now you. All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Squad Academy. All right. Well, today we have today is going to be a lighter day, and I think we're actually going to foster a better conversation. We have more time to focus on these two main topics. But before we jump into the fun part, first of all, I gotta welcome the Honorable Mayor of Lagos. I've forgotten the title again. What do you call it again?
I go wait.
Okay, we did it. Our brother Edosa, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. This lovely day. What's it? You guys, it's actually like 7 a.m. It's not as bright outside, so we'll do what we can do.
Do what we can do, man. We do what we can do. And at the time of recording, this is at least Sunday morning. So, can't imagine.
Happy Sunday, guys.
Happy Sunday, guys. To do this, they'll go to worship the Lord.
Yes.
This is good. This is good. But yeah, today we have two topics that we'll be covering. The first one being PayDay's recent news that came out last week. PayDay is looking to sell 6 months after raising $3 million, which is shocking news. But then again, this is funny because I would dive more into this, but this is funny because a couple of months ago, I think back in June or July, there was actually news of the COO and the co-founder who stepped down, right? And back then the reasons were quite shaky. We talked about it on this podcast, right? And we said only time.
Yeah. That's true. That's actually true. Yeah. So, yeah, you see, continuation,
right? So it's funny that this whole news came out this week, but we'll dive right into that and we'll see exactly what's going on within PayDay. And the second topic that we'll talk about is President Tinubu of Nigeria and President Ruto of Kenya have been doing a series of tours. They've been in the United States. Tinubu last week was at the New York Stock Exchange, Wall Street, talking to investors on the need to invest in Nigeria. And President Ruto was in Silicon Valley, California, to talk to investors on why they should invest in Kenya. So we'll glance over those two areas and try to share our views on what's going on and what could come out from those conversations. So diving right into it. All right, PayDay. As I was saying, about 2, 3, 4 months ago, I don't know how far ago was July again. You guys do the math, Sha.
Yeah, that's 2 to 3 months ago.
You guys are smarter than me. It's too early to do math. But yeah, a couple of months ago, Sha. The news came out that I forgot her. I think it was Chike or something, or Chika. But
Ogechi Obike.
Ogechi, yes. The former COO of PayDay stepped down. But let's not even go that far yet. Let's even talk about the story that just came out this week. This week, story came out that PayDay was looking to sell 6 months, or barely 6 months after raising $3 million. Now, there's more to uncover in this story. For those who don't know what PayDay is, let us remind you guys again. PayDay is a fintech startup in Nigeria. I think it's Rwanda as well. I think they're primarily based in Rwanda, but they also have major operations in Nigeria. But pretty much, story came out this week of them looking to sell. Now, keep in mind, these guys raised $3 million a couple of months ago. And since then, a lot of things have happened internally, and that's what we're going to discuss. And this could be a conversation, by the way. But pretty much the first thing that happened after, I think barely 3 months after they raised that $3 million, they actually, I think the CEO, name again, because he's the main one that's under the limelight with this.
Favory,
yes. Favory, the CEO, actually announced that they'll be slashing pay cuts by 30 to 50%, right? And back then, the primary reason was because they were trying to domicile in Nigeria, so there was a need to readjust operations and finances to meet that need. Now, the main reason why this whole thing has become a problem is because on one end there was noise about. On one end, he cut the pay cuts. He cut the salaries by 30-50% for all the employees. However, Favor, the CEO, kept his salary of $15,000 per month, right? And you guys can do the math, right? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And you're talking about like making that amount of money in Africa. Now, I don't know where exactly he lives, whether he lives in Nigeria or Rwanda or wherever it is. I don't know. But if you did
for a startup as well,
for a startup,
exactly. No, that's
$3
crazy.
million, like, how would you have that much runway if you're paying yourself $50,000 per month? But well, and keep in mind, I mean, this is a venture-backed startup, right? I mean, if you look at the guys that invested in that last round, I've forgotten the main guys, and I have to look it up.
Money Points was one of the main people.
Money Point led the round, right? And that's a very good point, because Money Point led the round. And there was also noise that they wanted to acquire them shortly after they led that last round, but I think that was quickly retracted for some reasons or whatever. Maybe I decided. Do you know why that was the case?
So there were conflicting news, right? Money Point said they quickly retracted that. They quickly debunked that rumor by saying that the investment in PayDay was strategic. Whereas a month or two after, PayDay's founder came out saying that they did get an offer, but he didn't say from who, to acquire the business, but they turned it down at that time. So many people put two and two together, but there's still no direct, clear facts from either of them that it was Money Point.
Mm.
But what we do know is that Money Point was a significant investor in that 3 million round. I think probably the lead investor.
Well, lead investor, right? Yeah. I mean, I think that was the case. But with this whole story, right? With this whole story, who do you? Because there's news circulating about them looking to sell. Who do you think? Do you think there's really anyone on board that's really trying to acquire them at this point? Because I couldn't dig anything up on this.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure, but what he's trying to do. Now, in the last episode, we talked about it's always good to at least try and sell the company, make something out of it, and that's fine. He was probably trying to sell. I mean, you said it, salary slashes, everything. So they were probably already in some kind of stress, and now trying to quickly salvage it and sell it. It's just so bad that he's selling it at a time when bad news about the internal management is also coming out. So it will be very hard to find an attractive buyer, first of all, and a buyer that will pay something solid for this, because everybody now looking at this is worried about, first of all, the bad name, the decrease in goodwill of the company, and just what else is hanging in the in the woodworks. What else did he do that is so messed up that we'll find out later on? So and just the gross mismanagement of the cash position of the company, it's just they're in a very slim chance of getting any attractive acquisition, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think what even compounds the problem is the fact that Favor is not a first time founder, right? So he kind of has like a stained track record, right? Kind of had like a stained track record. I think back in 2020, he was the CEO of WeJakba. For those who don't know what WeJakba is, it's a job site, right? It's a job site for those looking to secure international gigs or whatever it is. Folks based in Africa, software developers, whatever it is, who are seeking to get jobs outside of Nigeria, outside of Africa, and to get more money and stuff. So WeJakba pretty much just a job site for international jobs. And there was news that came out then about him being very hostile with the developers that worked for him, how he wasn't paying salaries here and there. And ultimately, it got quite nasty, and he had to step down as a CEO, right, back in 2020. And I think apparently he went quiet for about a year, and I think maybe in 2021 or so he came back and announced that 2021 or so he came back and announced that he was launching PayDay, right? So folks were just like, yeah, this guy already has a staying track record. A lot of people kind of overlooked it when he came back. They were just like, oh, like this guy is back again. But there are people within the space who are like who still remember everything that happened with Jackman, and like they will never back the guy, and they were never surprised that this is even happening with PayDay. So the fact that he had that kind of staying track record, the fact that people are now seeing quote unquote who he is kind of could affect how things move forward with PayDay, right? So I'm not sure how he can, but to be fair, I mean I think he came out this week and he spoke quite strongly about the current situation with PayDay, and he also mentioned that he also took a pay cut with the whole thing. Now we don't know what exactly his pay cut was, whether it was 1% or 3%, or
Pay
whether it
cut,
was,
get pay cut.
or whether it was 50%. But he said he took a pay cut as well. But he also said, well, that he also pumped in $100,000 of his money to start the company, and he was taking like no salary for the first couple of months or so, whatever it is. So maybe I was trying to justify his 15K salary, but I'm like, but like founders go unpaid for years until they start.
He also, in fairness, he also said that he also personally invested about $100,000 in the company. So trying to use that to give people like a full picture of, so that made it look as if he's not just extractive, that he also put in some skin in the game, according to him.
I don't know. I mean, what do you think about this whole thing, man? Like, what do you think?
Well, before I begin to bash the company's management and how it was run, let me just put a disclaimer there that, look, I know it seems like we always talk about
The negative.
misconduct in startups. Let's put things in perspective. I think there should be about like 700 minimum startups in Nigeria or West Africa that have raised something, in the past 2 years. So if just like 5 or 10 are the ones being called out for like, gross mismanagement / fraud potentially, it's not too bad. I don't think that percentage is any different in the US, the UK, or whatever. We already know some interesting names in the US.
Everywhere. Like in the US, it's even bigger numbers. Like you're talking about.
Exactly. Our whole fundraise for that Africa itself is probably some fraud cases in the US. So that's us putting in perspective. But we are not ignorant of the fact that this small, because it's such a small number, so the small guys that mess up, sort of, we're also at the top. $3 million raise is probably one of the top 1% of African startups, that raised that for seed round. So these are the guys at the top that are making these mistakes. That's why it even made news. Because if somebody raised 25K and he did rubbish with the money, it would even enter news. You get.
Yeah.
So this is why it made news. So that's why we're calling it out. And two, it's good when an industry, an ecosystem self-corrects itself. We're not going to coddle anybody because we know you or whatever. Then that just becomes delusion. We have to call it out, and that shows that we ourselves, we are being transparent. And I guess that gives investors some confidence. That's why we bring these things up, guys. Not because we're hating. We want to hear good news, I beg. Send it our way. So, disclaimer aside, therefore, you're saying, what do I think? Obviously, I think it was the writing is in the wall. You were grossly overpaid. Your CEO, who is meant to be like your rock by your side, is jumping the ship. That's the biggest vote of no confidence. Because that's the person that sees everything by your side. That person stands to gain by your side. But that person left again. So that's the biggest vote of no confidence. Then also, you're paying yourself that much. That's on its own, that's debatable. Maybe you're the smartest guy in the world, whatever. We're paying yourself that much, and you have another full-time job in GitHub.
Yeah, GitHub.
The combination of those two, because one, obviously, we tell many founders, look, do this as side hustle while you're building. So having a side hustle, whatever, is not bad. But almost your side hustle is paying you 15K per month, boss. We here. Come on, come and talk to us, as squad.
Man, this is the real chairman, man.
bro, like Abba, your side also is 15K, you know, and GitHub, you know, that should be heavy numbers as well. So that's outrageous. That's outrageous. One, if you're paying yourself 15K, you're commanding the market. You're telling us that, guys, I have so much talent, I have so much I'm sacrificing, I'm putting all my chips in for this company. Then people can start to try to rationalize that 15K. But if you are even those you half of your leg is in there, something that you do in spare time, you're justifying 15K for that. Absurd. By
Yeah.
any metrics, that's crazy.
Do you
You
think
get
it was
so
a
sorry?
do you think it was a case of, I mean, allegedly he said he put $100,000 into it, right? So do you think it was a case of, man, I don't know where this startup is going. I'm not sure where things are going to be. So let me just try to just pull out as much as I can pull out of it right now when we still have capital on board in the most legal manner that I know I can. Like, do you think it was a case of that?
I think so. I think so because guys, let's be honest. I used to hear this a lot when I was very young. That a company is like a person that can't see, touch, or feel. Right? Can feel, but can't see or touch. So that company needs crazy supervision. It needs the management team is the one and the board, especially, that one's holding the company saying, okay, go here, go there. But the company has a big bank account. You get so all of you on the board are responsible for guiding that company, for ensuring that that company is not being cheated. Because the company's account is different from your account. So when you're making decisions, you're making it for somebody else. And that's the company. The company cannot see, cannot touch, they cannot hear. So you're the one making those decisions. You're meant to do that in fairness of the company, not to you. So you have to ask yourself, forget that I founded it, forget that I'm favor or real or whatever, forget that I put 100K in it. The company himself, as an individual who has $3 million, should he be paying somebody? Forget that that person is me, $15,000. Is there somebody else that will do the same job I'm doing for less? If so, blankly do make those decisions in favor of the company. So I think many founders forget those core tenets of corporate governance, forget those core tenets of separation. The company is not me. Even though I put my sweat, my tears, my blood in the company, it is not me. The company has to do what's best for the company. That's why you see in the US, you see things like Steve Jobs got ousted as
That's it.
CEO of Apple. You get it's not you. Forget you founded it. Once you incorporate a company, yeah, by law, you're creating a new entity on his or her own. They stand on their own. And founders need to realize that, accept that anything you now do from there on can be counted as fraud. Because another thing people forget, the silent partner in every business you start is the government. You get it? Because government has a claim to tax. You get to every profit you make. So if you are cheating the company on profit, the government can say you're cheating us on our share of the tax. You get. So if you are paying yourself, you raise $3 million and pay yourself $1 million per month, 3 months or 3 months wrong way. Government say we don't think that's just right. You're deliberately cheating us so that there'll be no profits, so there'll be no our share is not there. You have automatically cheated somebody else, a partner that you didn't know was a partner in the business. That's not your cap table. So guys need to, many young founders and even apparently seasoned ones like these guys need to stop that. And another thing again, that again, the guy is not a new founder, he's a seasoned founder. So this is his, you can claim that this is his MO. Right?
Yeah.
And it's let's not be guys, let's be honest. So if you want to make money today, start a company, run it for like 6 months. It now has attractive cash flow. I can go to the bank, borrow against that, and use that money to because the company is making more money than you as an individual. So it has access to more gifts and more credit from the bank and whatever. So you leverage that for your own benefits. And that's what people commit fraud. Yeah. So it's a deliberate approach. That let me create a company that will pay for my lifestyle. That's what people do. And they forget that you're offending so many people that you didn't know are really legitimate partners in that business. Your employees are stakeholders. If you mismanage the funds and you can't pay employee salary, who are you kidding? They're not your servants. You have done something against the company, which is your staff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very you already said it well, right? It's not like we're trying to be the bash show for African tech startups. No, no, it's just that when these things happen, it's only right that we also highlight them. The same way we'll always highlight the good ones, the good stories. And that's funny enough, we actually want to highlight way more good stories, right? Because that's what we want. We want more capital flow into Africa. But at the same time, we also have to identify these bad eggs and bring them to the front line and say, you know what, how do we solve this? How do we prevent this moving forward? Right? Do we get more regulation from the CBN or whatever it is on the fintechs? Do we get more regulation overall on tech startups? Like, how do we avoid this? Right? Because we need to make sure that we always have enough resources for those who are actually trying to build, right, for Africa. So yeah, I mean, it's one I'll have to. I feel like there'll still be more. There'll still be more that will come out from this whole PayDay saga. So we have to follow it closely and see what comes out. Now, I mean, right now they're still trying to sell. We don't know where exactly that stands. But I don't know. I mean, I'm going to say the same thing again. Only time will tell how this whole thing ends, right? Only time will tell. I still believe they have. It's never been a situation of whether. And funny enough, even some co-workers actually came out and said that the COO stepping out wasn't just about misalignment of goals and vision. She was thought that she wasn't happy with her pay cut, so that was actually a major problem. She wasn't happy with the pay cut and the management style, right? I feel like they're going to go different ways. So it wasn't just. And remember back then they said, "Man,
it sounds fishy, right? Right? Yeah,
sounds fishy." So, I mean, clearly now, hindsight is always 2020, right? But now we're at least seeing that yes, there was a pay cut that she wasn't happy with, and there was some management issue that she wasn't happy with as well. So it all makes a lot of sense now. But we'll only have to wait and see what happens with them moving forward. I don't think it's never been a, and I think for the one thing I have to give favor is he is good at launching projects. We'll give him that. He's good at launching projects, right? He launched with Jackpot, he launched PayDay. These were two different platforms that ultimately grew past that pre-seed seed stage, whatever, right? They actually raised capital. They actually had a good amount of customers and users. Now the problem is he's never scaled up to the Series A, B, C kind of level, right? And I think that's the problem. Like, is it just that guy that is just good at launching startups, right? Is it not that guy that just good at just getting projects off the ground from ideation to MVP and post MVP phase, or is he also capable of scaling this into like large enterprises? We don't know that yet, and we don't even know how this whole thing will happen. So we don't even know how this whole case will unfold. Maybe he might be asked to step down again as CEO, and now show that track record. Guy, like I the guy who just launches and steps down. But like you said, it's gonna be different this time around because with what's it called with PayDay, he's raised institutional capital, right? He now has Money Point as a key investor. He has other people on board as investors, so he has a whole board that's literally that he is accountable for. So they'll be the ones who really decide what the fate is. If the board is saying, "Dude, he has to step down," then he's gonna have to step down, right? So it's not like it's not business as usual where he can just misbehave and think that will happen. And I think that's a reality that he's gonna find out quite soon. But time will tell how this whole thing unfolds. But I mean, what do you any final thoughts on this whole conversation?
yeah. I mean, you've touched on everything properly. The only thing I would say is a lesson here also for other management and C-level executives is to when you see crime is ethics. When you see crime taking place on like a management level and you don't want to be part of it, right? A good thing to do is resign and declare your reason for resignation. I think what Ogechi did was very smart and listen to people, right? You don't just stay at the helm of things and say, I didn't know, I didn't see. Because you could actually be, if someone takes this case seriously and assuming it was treated as a true fraud case, and if assuming allegedly if there was actually fraud,
Yeah,
all C-levels executives will be liable because you sign on this as well. Whether you do your own salary as well or not, you're liable because you're a director in the company. So I think the confidence that makes me rate her more. The confidence to step aside, even though you could make money from doing that or whatever. When you see something that doesn't make sense, I respect that a lot. Literally when I saw the news, the person I did, I googled her, like check out link. I was like, okay, that just made me respect the person's decision. Hopefully, that's all that was the reason. You get.
I mean, that's all we know for now. So yeah, so just we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Yeah. But yeah, well said, well said. But jumping on to the next one. Yeah. So I feel like it's been I was to say Tinubu has been pretty active recently. He has been really active. From going to India, for the G20 summit and before that meeting with the Indian private sector to discuss investments in Africa and all that. Now he's now in the US, and to be fair, he's been visiting a lot of so what happened this past week was Tinubu was in New York. While he was in New York, he actually rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. I was like, this is what isn't our money for. But anyways, all our publicity. I mean, it's all publicity. I mean, that's fair. But I think the main goal of that wasn't just to ring a bell. I think he actually wanted to be in front of people, in front of key investors, to plead to US investors to
signal that Nigeria is ready for investment again.
And to be fair, he said it. Tinubu said it himself. He's a CMO, right? He's the chief marketing officer for Nigeria. He's the first person that people look at when it comes to Nigeria. He's the president, right? And I think it's important for him to go on this show. Let's say a road show it's important for him to go on this series of talks and speeches to really seek that investment, because his transition into presidency has kind of been very shaky, right? A lot of people know how the election went, how the election turned out. A lot of people were saying, B was this and this and that and that. So it kind of affected the overall aura and how scale, right? So now I know the court case has been going on, and I think they've actually declared him president now and all that. So it's only right for him now to go on this series of conversations to actually plead for people to come back, to at least see Nigeria as a safe haven. I know he talked during that speech. He talked about how they've already been implementing certain policies to ensure investments are safe. I know he talked about the currency that has not been floated. He talked about the subsidies that have been removed. And these were some bottlenecks, right? These were some bottlenecks. The fact that, the currency being floated before actually prevented a lot of international companies and majorly affecting the airline industry. You know, that I think it was about $600 million that was actually tied in the airline. The airlines actually had tied in Nigeria, right? Just because of the whole forex thing. So these are things that actually making, whether it was either like flight prices ridiculously high from Nigeria, or even a lot of these airlines even question if it's even worth it still maintaining those routes and flying to Nigeria. These were the things that was really affecting the outlook on Nigeria and in turn the economy. So he spoke about those things, right? The fact that they not floated the currency and there's not one flat currency, and why this will ensure more stability and more safety for investors that are coming to invest, and when they want to exit, they can easily exit their investments. So before jumping onto Ruto, like, what do you think about about this whole thing? Do you think it's the right step that Tinubu is taking, and what's your suggestion?
Oh, for sure. I think many countries went to New York for this United Nations event, right? But obviously, because we're Nigerians, we followed Nigerian party and what went on with that. And from what we saw, right, I was impressed, right? Because it seems like they scheduled lots of meetings, advanced meetings with both political heavyweights in the US and the business community as well. Like you said, being presidents and being the president's team, even ministers, all these guys, especially chief marketing officers, right? They're not doing the technical work there, but they're just signaling to people that, look, we're available to talk, we're ready to talk, let's have these conversations early. And that way, these guys, these Americans, we're hearing that they go back to their boardroom when they're talking about the annual projections for next year. They consider things like Nigeria or those conversations as far as African office to domicile, partnerships to strike. I know AWS and Busot Tijani, the IT minister, had a sidebar conversation as well. So all these things are they just give what they do. They give the US counterparts, the US companies, a flashback when the word Nigeria comes back to them again. So let's say something is on your table involves a Nigerian project or potentially an African project. Nigeria comes top of mind to you because you met the president, a couple months ago, or you saw the guy giving speech about climate change. So it does those things signal to them that okay, these guys are serious. They just help with top of mind memory. But what they'll follow up with is what's actually happening on ground, because these guys will end up paying significant money to consultants and guys like that to give them a follow-up update of what's going on. So they need to see that the talk and the actions match, so that way they don't enter one chance like coming to the country, then next day tax code just changes. I think the whole business model.
No, well said. And I know he also gave a very good speech as well at the UN at the UN meeting. So, but yeah, I mean, it's only I was talking to some other folks the other day. I said, I mean, these things are good, but then again, actions have to follow, right? Action have to follow closely. The policies that they put in place are good, but we need to do more than that, right? For people to come back, we need to make ease of doing business a thing. We need to set up some infrastructure. We need to work on our power grid. Like there's certain things that we need to, I mean, like companies that didn't just leave because of Forex or fuel subsidy, right? There were certain infrastructural and government policy that made them exit. So like we need to solve those major bottlenecks, right? We need to solve those major problems. But at least one thing I'll say it's a step in the right direction. So we'll keep praying and supporting them and making sure that they follow this closely. But yeah, so while this whole thing is going on the other side as well of Africa, we had President Ruto, who is also who was in Silicon Valley. So one was in New York for a UN meeting, and I guess New York is the finance capital of the world, right? You say the world. I say it's the world, right? Wall Street.
Yeah, I said the world, yeah.
And you had that person who was in the tech capital of the world. So Ruto was there, he was in Silicon Valley, and he was speaking to investors, also seeking the investments in Kenya. Now, Kenya is one country, and I hope to visit one day. And I know that they just had a summit in Kenya for tech startups. I forgot, and know the likes of Idris Bello and Kobe there. I think it was Kenya, yeah. But Kenya is one country that's been really impressive when it comes to the tech ecosystem, right? I mean, looking at where they've come from, looking where they are, and looking at how a nation can grow when you have the right people and policies in place. That's one thing I give Kenya, because they don't have the resources that a lot of these other African nations have, but they've managed to grow their nation. But Kenya, so Ruto was there. He was talking about how investors should invest and why they should be investing. Kenya is top for when it comes to investments being made. So when it comes to VC investments being made, I think only South Africa. I think top four. Now I don't know the exact order, but Nigeria is of course first. Egypt is second. South Africa is either South Africa or Kenya third and fourth.
Well, Egypt first this year. Sorry, last year. I think I don't. Egypt did a surprising thing.
I think it was
last year.
It came first.
Okay, yeah, probably Q1, yeah.
So,
but they have a fast growing trend. Yeah, you're right.
So, but pretty much top four is Egypt. Let me blow your mind. Top four is Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, and those guys combined raised 92.13% of what the VC capital in Africa, right? In the first half of 2023. So that gives an idea of like, man, like when you talk about the Pareto principle, like 80-20, like bro, like it's just like those four guys are pretty much taking all the
capital in the market. Yeah.
But then again, when you look at those other three, South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt, and you look at Kenya, like wow, Kenya is on that list. And it makes you realize how impressive they are, right, and what they've done. But at the same time, while all that's going on, I know he has also received some backlash on like certain taxes that have been imposed within the country. and why it's not good. But at the same time, he also debunked. He also went back and said, "No, I mean, like the tax system is quite easy to understand and implement." I think they actually. So I think some of the things that they did was they actually removed the tax that they placed on stock-based compensation for startups. They removed the export duties tax or whatever it is for companies. But I think they impose certain taxes here, and maybe you can speak to this. But like overall, like what's your take on this on the other side, right? Ruto, who was in Silicon Valley pleading for investment. I won't say pleading, but encouraging.
Marketing, yeah. I mean, two things. First of all, on the tax issue, yeah, it goes back to what we just concluded about Nigeria. That look, you can say one thing, but people will go and check receipts. So as he was, preaching about tax concessions essentially to tech investors in Silicon Valley, the question he kept getting as a response, and what the media kept publishing was that guy, he just doubled tax on what's it called, on tech services just this
Yeah,
year.
from 1.5 to 3%.
Yeah, to 1.5 to 3%, you get, and yeah, you're telling people that you're going to be tax friendly. It doesn't align with what you just did, right? And so that was like one of the first pushbacks he got. I know he's claiming that he wants to remove tax on stock-based compensation and things like that. But people are just scared that guy, you just
Already did that, right? I think he said he already did that.
oh yeah, your possession. So people are like, guy, we're just kind of scared of your the inconsistencies in the language. But then another angle he now pitched, right? I think he used three different pitches. So tax friendliness. Then another thing I kept saying is that we're the safest and reliable country to be your gateway to Africa, right? So he kept deliberately pushing that hey, look, if I want to have African exposure, why not why not start with us? That we are unlike every other African country. We are like unlike we have stable governments. We are that we're trying to pitch and separate himself that look, if I want to be exposed to this continent, it's a no-brainer to come to us first. That's what they were trying to pitch, which anybody can try and sell the market. I think that was an interesting because everybody when people think Africa, sadly, they think political instability, they think economic instability. So you want to separate yourself from the pack, you're like, look, still be in Africa and avoid that political stability and economic stability by being in Kenya. That was his pitch. And the third pitch was, look, climate friendliness and all of that, that we take that very serious. So he came there with a very clear strategy, right? It's just interesting that media already started poking holes in some of his inconsistencies, which they will, right? I mean, you have to just do your best to pitch yourself.
Yeah, that's what they have to do, right? Yeah.
And I think the current, if I'm not mistaken, the current ambassador, US ambassador to Kenya is a former tech executive. So she was executive at HP and Disney and the likes. So first of all, I think that was a very interesting choice for the US to pick that kind of person as an ambassador to Kenya. That's very interesting already. And that's obviously influenced all this his tours he's doing right now in California. So she is an inside person that's also probably helping him shine the light on the US and bridging that gap. And that's why you can see the heavy focus on tech. So that's also an interesting sidebar on, being fortunate of who you pick as ambassador. Yeah, I hope on the flip side that Kenya is also picking strategic advisors, ambassadors in those different countries you get. Because your ambassador should be doing more than just, diplomacy. Look at what she's basically doubling us now. That's very impressive.
Exactly. No, I mean, I think you covered it. You covered it well. I just wanted to just highlight the two different approaches, right? I think these guys have been active. Kenyatta was also, if Kenyatta was elected this year, right, or last year? Is it last year? I mean,
you mean Ruto?
I said Kenyatta. Sorry, Ruto. Yeah.
Ruto was, I think it was last year, but very recently. Fairly, I don't think it was more than a year. It's quite recent.
Yeah. Because I remember when he was being elected, and I know there was some back and forth back then as well too. But yeah, so he's fairly new in office as well, and seeing him active as well, it's a good thing to see, right? But I mean, one Silicon Valley. So one Silicon Valley, one Wall Street. While we're on the topic of Wall Street, this is what I always say, right? When you are big, and it's those that are big that'll be pushing, that'll be trying to say, now you. Oh, on this, he actually thought I'll forget. this Edosa guy, you know, he was this Edosa guy was on Wall Street here, and he will kill the photo. Photo will come up. So Edosa, please give us the gist up there. Like, what's the whole story behind that? Because this guy literally on Wall Street, I rang the bell. So please give us.
Man, if we were on the spot, I mean, so full transparency, it was, like I said, it was a throwback. It was actually a while ago, man. It was like, I think it was 20.
Pretty much you have been big since. So don't tell you. I've been big for a while.
This was 2016. What's it called? We went for a global asset management conference, right? So what's it called? My cohort, who I went with, right? One of the itinerary for our events was ringing the opening bell for NASDAQ, right? So that's how your boy entered NASDAQ. You know, ring the bell. It wasn't IPO yet. The IPO one will still come. You get. It was funny. Like I had to. That was 2016. So I was young then. I had to tiptoe. So I was showing that picture. I was like, let me stretch. I was on my toes.
Why they put you at the back?
Don't mind them, man. You know, people be subliminally trying to like rub shoulder, like enter front. But you also can't act like you're hungry to enter front, but you're trying to enter front. So I just have to tiptoe like mad and like show face.
That's I mean, what's it like on Wall Street though? Like, I mean, like what's it like on Wall Street and that bell ringing ceremony? Like, what's it like?
Lots of energy, man. You literally just kicked off, you know, $1 trillion market to start trading that day. You get lots of energy, and also you see when I say New York is electric, bro. Because once you do that, like everybody's on to the next thing. It's not like we just stand there and say, "Mad, you can't even sit down even."
There every day, like to watch you ring the bell.
Yeah. So not we don't ring it every day, but like somebody, it's always a different party.
Like, it's always a different, but like, is there a crowd there where you ring the bell? That's what I'm saying. Like,
yes, typically, and most of it is just NASDAQ stuff or whatever. Like, okay, what's going on here? Just like popping, right? Or maybe your entourage, people that you came with as well. So it's nice, but it's very fast paced, man. Because once you're done, bro, like 2 minutes, everybody back to work. Everybody's like on their own thing, man. Looking at that, and that just shows you, I guess, life or like how crazy capital is, bro. Like capital doesn't wait. It's in, out, moving quickly, and it's just an interesting lesson for us when looking at things like that. But yeah, guys, this is, you know how we always talk about something, then when I give you guys like not recap but follow on like 2 or 3 months after, who knows? So maybe we're hinting you guys scored too. They ring bells, you know, you understand? And this time around, we'll be at the front. They're not gonna push us.
Bro, that was good. Nah, that was a nice throwback, man. Because I had no idea you'd been to I think you might have been to Washington at some point. But I had no idea like you were actually at a bell ringing ceremony, so that was quite impressive.
Yeah, appreciate it. I mean, you know, some presidents were, you know, showing their own pictures. I feel like let me just tip my head and do my throwback.
And you can rub shoulders with them too. I mean, say less. Nah, that's good. But I think we've covered. I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover today.
Yeah.
Ultimately, payday. We'll see how that unfolds. The two CMOs, Tinubu and Ruto, we'll keep supporting our own president, making sure that, and of course, good luck to Kenya as well as they try to grow the economy. Well, keep doing what we can to support the Nigerian economy and see what we can do within our power to also help grow that nation and that economy. I know while he was in New York, he also spoke with, like you said, different communities here and there. He met with this Nigerian community, and they had some really quite accomplished people. And I think his split to them was, guys, we need your talents back home. And I think he's very vocal about this to the diaspora. We need you guys back home, right? And he spoke to them, and it was a really good conversation. They even wanted him to come back safe after the UN meeting. So
yeah,
so it's just a good look, and it's actually good to see this thing because it's like understanding that you're president, but you're also the servant of the people. Like, you're not too big to meet with, to meet with certain people, right? So, and I know that was one thing he got while doing his campaign, that he was meeting with people here and there and stuff. So, see him do more of that now is good, and we also hope that he does way more of this, because it doesn't end here. The fight to get that diaspora to invest back in Nigeria, it's a large fight. It's a long fight. I mean, we live and breathe this every day. Trust me, It's not like trying to convince Nigerians to come back. Although we see the need and we see the opportunity, I mean, there's a lot of convincing to do based off where we based on where we have come from and where we are today. So, Tinubu,
Totally agree.
keep pushing, and we'll get there. We'll get there. We're all optimistic. We'll get there. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Edosa, any final thoughts?
No, I think we covered everything pretty much. Those guys just keep being optimistic. Like we always say, finish the year strong. Go out, do good, and please bring good news back. So we'll talk about that for a change, man.
I know, but we're wrapping up with Q4. So we're wrapping up with Q4. We're about to get to Q4, the final last stretch for the year. So yeah, let's all, like I just said, let's all do what we can. Let's all try to finish strong. But yeah, thank you all again once for listening. You know, it's the host of the year, the host of the most, the greatest of the greatest, Young Daps on the microphone. Although there's no microphone yet, but on the microphone. You get
Virtual
the vibe.
microphone. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for listening. You know the vibes. Like this, share this, comments, let us know your thoughts. If you have anyone that you want to see on the podcast, any topics, please share with us. And yep, thank you all for listening. Edosa, my brother, you have a wonderful and blessed week. And to the audience, see you same time next week. Bye-bye.